You're working hard, but you feel like the results don't match your effort. No, we've all been there, right? It's so frustrating. I know how that feels. It happens when you're studying, when you're working, and when you're exercising too. And that's especially true for running, which is our topic for today. But can't you just try harder? Well, that's for long distance running like a marathon. And that's actually, well, pretty simple. The more you practice, the more your endurance will improve. At first, you might not even make it 10 minutes, but then you can run for 20, 30 minutes. And eventually, you can run for an hour, 2 hours, or even a full marathon. But when it comes to speed, it's a different story. I meet a lot of runners, and I'll ask them, okay, try running as fast as you possibly can. But no matter how many times I ask, are you sure that was an all out sprint? Let's try one more time. Even after I say that, when I watch them run, it's often clear they're not sprinting at full power. A lot of people just don't know how to generate their top speed. And no matter how hard they strain, their speed is just slow the vast majority of the time. Running as fast as you can is what we call an all-out sprint. But this can lead to a slight misunderstanding. The truth is, just using maximum force, it's hard to say that automatically translates to top speed. Even if you use a ton of force, it's how you use that force and when and where you primarily apply it. That's the more important point. To explain how to apply the right force at the right time and place, I've already discussed the first 2 points, pushing and lifting. And today, I'll go into more detail about the kicking motion. Kicking. How can you increase your running speed? The first point is stride, or how far you can extend your foot with each step. You could also call it stride length. The second is pitch, which is getting in one more step, or the speed of your leg turnover. Your running speed increases as these 2 factors improve. And the kicking motion we're talking about today is the key to increasing your pitch. Move your feet faster. When I say that, this is what happens in many cases. Their legs barely leave the ground. They're not pushing off the ground properly, and they're not lifting their legs high enough. So no matter how fast they try to move their feet, their speed doesn't increase. The 2 points of pushing and lifting have to be done correctly first, and only then can you kick the ground. You especially need to kick the ground hard from a state where your leg is lifted high enough. If you lift it high, we're talking about almost to your hip level. From that position, the leg comes down to touch the ground. In more technical terms, this is from the late swing phase to the early stance phase. We'll take a closer look at the principles of how to move your leg during this phase. If you compare marathon running to a 100-meter sprint, you can see it clearly. When you watch marathon runners, even though they're running fast, they look somewhat relaxed, don't they? Their cadence or pitch is about 180 steps per minute. That means they're taking about 3 steps per second. Being able to run for over 2 hours at that speed is incredible, but there's a limit to how much top speed you can generate with that. You need to increase the pitch. On the other hand, what about world-class 100-meter sprinters? Amazingly, they exchange their feet 4 to 5 times per second as they run. Think about it, they're taking a step every 0.2 seconds. This incredibly fast pitch is the secret to how short-distance runners can generate explosive speed. This isn't just about increasing your pitch. To generate fast speed and powerful performance, there's an important concept you need to know. It's called the stretch-shortening cycle, or SSC. In Korean, we call it the extension-contraction cycle. The term might sound a bit difficult, but the core concept is actually quite simple. It's simple. If you quickly stretch a muscle and then rapidly and elastically contract it, that muscle can generate more powerful and faster force than when it moves slowly. That's the basic idea. For example, when you jump, instead of starting from a static, paused squatting position, if you quickly squat down and then immediately jump without any delay, you can jump much more powerfully and higher. If we connect this to our topic of kicking, when you quickly kick your airborne foot down to the ground, the muscles you use for running, like your calf, the sole of your foot, your glutes, and your thighs, all get rapidly stretched by the ground reaction force. And then they contract powerfully again to push off the ground. This allows you to push off the ground with much greater force, providing a bigger boost. This is on a completely different level from just letting your airborne leg fall with gravity. Unlike in a marathon where you might land about 3 times per second, this allows you to generate much more powerful force and faster speed. The difference in pitch depends on how well you apply this kicking point we're discussing today. How quickly and efficiently you can pull your airborne leg down to kick the ground. That is the key factor that determines your pitch speed. People who are good at running, whether intentionally or not, have naturally mastered this kicking technique. So, how should you kick the ground? Let's look at the method in more detail. The wrong way to kick, overstriding. When we talk about kicking the ground, it's important to remember that while moving your feet quickly is part of it, another crucial element is how you control your airborne leg, that proper control. If you can't properly control your airborne leg, you'll end up with a common mistake, overstriding. You lift your leg into the air and then you extend it forward. You might be thinking, what's wrong with extending it forward? Don't you have to extend it forward to move forward? You might be thinking that. I've already made a detailed video explaining this motion, so please refer to that for more details. Not only does it slow you down, but it also increases your risk of injury. These are two major problems that can arise from overstriding. A leg that extends forward actually hinders your ability to speed up. You end up pushing the ground forward. In response, the ground reaction force pushes your body backward. Ultimately, a leg that extends far forward can only act as a factor that slows you down. If you land with your leg fully extended, your hamstrings have to work much harder, and that can also put a lot of strain on your knees. So when you bring your airborne leg down to the ground, you need to kick it downward, not forward. That way, you can then continue to push it backward, maintaining your speed without any loss of force. But that's not as easy as it sounds. If you analyze running posture, you push off the ground with the leg that's in contact with it, right? That foot becomes airborne and accelerates forward. As it does, a force naturally occurs that tends to straighten the knee to some extent. In this situation where your knee is raised to hip level, if you just leave the leg as is, the forward acceleration causes the leg to extend forward. So how do we control this? Let's take a closer look at the practice methods and supplementary exercises. If you're interested in running, you've probably tried this at least once. I'm talking about this motion where you alternate lifting and crossing your leg. You can perform this movement with various rhythms. And while there are important points for exercising the iliopsoas, a key muscle for lifting the leg, this time we're focusing on the point of kicking the ground. So let's pay attention to the rhythm of the up and down motion. When you lift your leg, don't use a lot of force, just lift it up slowly. Once you've lifted your leg to about hip height, you're going to kick the ground hard and fast with enough speed to make a sound. At first, just do it in place, alternating slowly. You can also try it while moving forward and focus on matching the rhythm with your other leg as you perform the movement. And you've probably seen this done by runners or athletes in running-based sports like soccer. At first, your rhythm might be off and your feet might get tangled. But as you get used to it, you should practice until you can freely control your airborne leg. As you can see from the leg movement, the foot that's raised to hip height is in front of you in the air. When it lands, it's slightly in front of your body. But you shouldn't just focus on bringing it down. If you just lower your leg straight down, you'll land quite far in front of your body. The feeling of pulling your leg back slightly, you need to focus on kicking the ground as you pull it back. Lift with a soft, gentle force and lower with a fast, strong force. Focus on connecting these movements smoothly. After you finish this leg lifting skip and its variations, we'll move on to a more powerful supplementary exercise where you quickly lift, lower, and kick your leg. We call these low pitch and high pitch movements. They're named based on how high you lift your leg. First, let's start with a lower height, lifting your knee to about mid-thigh level as you do the movement. You just quickly alternate your legs left and right as if you're running in place. The most important point here is to move as fast as you can. And while lifting is part of it, you need to pay special attention to kicking the ground as you lower your leg. There's a common mistake people make with this movement. They often lift their legs like this with the knee bent and the foot not rising very high. But when you do it this way, you don't need much force to lift your leg. And since your foot isn't very high, you also don't need much force or speed to kick the ground. So when doing this movement, instead of just bending your leg and lifting your knee, you should straighten your knee a bit and lift your entire leg forward. That means your foot moves forward as you lift your leg. Of course, these movements are done for various purposes. But it's not just about lifting the leg. You have to kick the airborne leg, the foot, down to the ground with force. You have to kick it slightly backward. Kick fast enough to hear the sound of your foot hitting the ground. Actually, for most people, just doing it at this low height is enough. Even just 10 to 20 seconds of doing it quickly can feel as tiring as a 100-meter sprint. But if you're thinking, I'm a decent runner and want to increase the intensity, then you can try lifting your leg higher so your knee comes up to about hip height as you do the movement. A word of caution. The situation of kicking the ground powerfully, if you don't have any particular physical problem, and if you gradually build up from a lower level, there shouldn't be any major problem. But the force you feel when kicking the ground very quickly like this can put quite a strain on your body. You could get injured or experience pain. The areas that are particularly prone to problems are things like plantar fasciitis, which is pain in the sole of the foot or pain in the front or outer part of your ankle after running. These kinds of issues often come up, but the moment you kick the ground quickly where you support your weight on your foot is extremely important. You need to support your weight on the side of your little toe, the outer side of your foot. But surprisingly, many people don't do this. They might kick the ground with the big toe side, the inner side of the foot, or support their weight in the middle of the foot. These cases are quite common. Because the foot has a slightly concave arch shape, the little toe side needs to touch the ground first as you kick. This allows the concave arch to flatten, and the impact is absorbed evenly across the entire foot. So whether you're doing supplementary exercises or running, it's very important to make sure you pay close attention to kicking the ground starting from the little toe side. We focused on the motion of kicking the ground in a coaching context, specifically for running forward. But actually, this isn't just important for running forward like in a 100-meter dash. It's also very important in sports that are based on running, like basketball, soccer, and tennis. It's also very important in sports like these. And even in sports like badminton, where you don't run as much, you still need to move quickly. This kicking motion is a key point that can be applied to all such sports. Usually, the point of kicking the ground is very important for running forward quickly, but there are often cases where that's not what you're doing. You might have to run sideways to the left or right, or turn your body and run backward. I'm talking about these various situations. In these cases, kicking the ground becomes a particularly important point. You have to kick in the opposite direction of where you want to move. If you need to move left, you have to kick the ground to the right. If you need to move right, you kick the ground to the left. And if you need to run backward, you have to kick the ground forward. So, kicking the ground in the opposite direction of your intended movement is the key point. Of course, there are many other points to consider besides kicking the ground. We'll cover those in more detail when we discuss how to move in various directions. Okay, let's summarize today's content. Running that focuses on long distances like a marathon runner doesn't involve moving your feet incredibly fast. On the other hand, for speed and agility in sport situations that involve running short distances quickly, like the 100-meter dash, you need to create much faster speeds by quickly kicking your airborne leg. I've shown you various supplementary exercises, so try them out, making sure to focus on the key points for each one. The 3 points I've shared so far, powerfully pushing off the ground, lifting your leg high, and then kicking that raised leg down, are ways to amplify these movements to create faster speeds. There are also ways to generate speed without using a lot of force. This is very important for properly using the twisting motion I'll explain in the next video. In the next video, we'll look at how to use twisting to amplify the 3 points I've shared so far and generate even faster speed. And it's also a way to generate speed without using much force. Let's talk about twisting, especially at the start of a 100-meter dash or in other particularly important situations in sport. When you need to instantly burst forward and accelerate, this twisting is a very important point. Lately, this point, sometimes called GOTA, is being talked about a lot as the secret to the performance of top-tier athletes regardless of the sport. But in reality, these movements have slightly different details depending on the sport and the specific action, and I'll be covering those aspects one by one in the future. So from simple jogging to those who enjoy sports, if you subscribe, I'll continue to bring you useful information that can help. With that, thank you for watching the video to the end.